My awakeners, have you ever wondered who the Antichrist is? So many people point to this is the end of times, this is what the book of Revelations was talking about, this person's the Antichrist, this person's the Antichrist, and this has been said over 2,000 years of each generation having their own Antichrist. But have you ever stopped and actually asked yourself who they were talking about when they were referring to the Antichrist? Let's take a look at what really happens in Acts and why the disciples started to sound the alarms of the Antichrist. The book of Acts tells us that Paul and Barnabas and a young man named John Mark were spreading Jesus' message to the Gentiles. What they don't tell you directly, that's left out, or that you have to read in between the lines, is why Mark suddenly deserts Paul and returns to Jerusalem. You ever think about that? Because they say he was too immature and that's why he left. Let's take a step back and understand who Mark actually is. This is the same Mark that wrote the first canonized Gospel of Mark. Mark, he was Barnabas's cousin. More importantly, he was Peter's scribe and interpreter. He just wasn't some random translator. He actually knew Jesus' message firsthand. He was translating Peter's message, Peter that actually walked and broke bread with Jesus, his message from Aramaic into Greek. He understood and had firsthand experience with Peter. Barnabas also walked with Jesus and learned from Jesus firsthand. The difference is Mark understood Aramaic and Greek, just like Paul. Paul understood Aramaic and Greek. They were both Hellenized Jews. Barnabas, on the other hand, he understood Hebrew and Aramaic. All three of them understood Jesus' actual message in Aramaic. Barnabas gave Paul the benefit of the doubt because no other Jews were giving Paul the benefit of the doubt. He said, if you want to go and share the message with the Gentiles, I'll go with you. But let me bring my cousin who also understands Aramaic and Greek and can help you translate the message to the Gentiles. Barnabas was well intended, spoke very little Greek, so that's why he wanted to bring Mark along. Because he knew that Mark was fluent and he knew Jesus' actual message, interpreting it for Peter. Paul, he didn't know that Mark knew the actual message. He thought, okay, great, bring him along. He understands Greek. He can help me to preach to the Gentiles. He's just going to translate. He doesn't know that I'm going to change it to appeal to the Gentiles. Paul decided, yeah, go ahead, let's bring him along. He can help me. When Mark saw what Paul was doing, he recognized right away. He saw the distortion. He saw that Paul was changing the story to fit the Gentiles' pagan mythology, and that he saw it immediately. He didn't just desert Paul out of fear or immaturity. He fled because he saw what was happening. He saw the lie. He saw the distortion. And he went back to tell the Jerusalem council that was led by Jesus' own brother, James the Just. This is where it gets deep. The council confronted Paul in Antioch, which was Paul's hub. He downplays the whole thing. In Acts, it seems like it was a minor disagreement over faith and works. Writes later that they agreed, and also that him and Mark reconciled. But that's not the truth, and that's not the story. Let's not forget who Paul was. Paul was a persecutor of early Jesus followers, not because they were keeping the law. Remember, he was a Pharisee and he wanted order, hierarchy, and structure. He wanted the religious structure. He wanted to be the Pharisee of the Pharisee. If he saw people not keeping the law, he was persecuting them. So therefore, they were not keeping works, he later claims in the Bible. They were dismantling the system of religion. That is what they were doing. They were bypassing religion. They were breaking free of the old religious structures. They were declaring a direct relationship with God, not through temples, not through sacrifice, not through priesthood, but through the inner awakening. All to later say that those same people were obsessed with faith and works is a blatant contradiction. If they were really just another Jewish sect or denomination clinging to Jewish law, Paul wouldn't have seen them as a threat. Think about it. So what was the real issue in Antioch? It was that Mark exposed Paul's distortions. Paul had begun turning Jesus into a Greco-Roman style demigod, born of a virgin, rising on the third day. This was a completely different version of the rabbi that walked across Judea through the Galilee, teaching parables, embodying compassion, healing, truth, your inner divinity. Paul, who never met Jesus, he never quotes any parables, never quotes any teachings. He never even claims to meet Jesus in the flesh, only that he had a vision, a private revelation, and his story changed 3 different times. And he calls himself an apostle, that he was commissioned to go and spread the message of Jesus. He never even verified his message with the original disciples. And he boasted that he didn't even have to. Right after his vision, he waited 3 years, then another 14 years. How does that even make sense that somebody who was commissioned isn't even in alignment with the actual disciples who walked with him? When he got called out by the actual disciples, he ran straight into Roman territory, where he conveniently was protected by the Romans as a Roman citizen. The original disciples, they weren't, because they were not Roman citizens, so they couldn't freely go into Roman territory without getting harmed. And it was in Roman territory that he built his gospel. And that's why after the confrontation in Antioch, he flees. Then all of a sudden, you see all of the apostles write in their own letters about false teachers, the deceiver who came from us but is not from us, the Antichrist, and many antichrists. Because Paul, he gained a following, his gospel. Not the actual gospel of Jesus, but his gospel. And so now they're saying there's many antichrists because all the Gentiles are listening to his gospel, the pagan mythology. John said the Antichrist was already among them. Jude wrote of certain people who crept in unnoticed, turning the message into something it was never meant to be. And Paul's own arrogance is a red flag. He writes, even an angel from heaven preaches a different gospel of mine. Then let them be cursed. What kind of man dares to curse angels for not preaching his gospel? This is why the apostles warned so clearly. They knew what Paul did. They knew who he was. He wasn't just wrong. He was the very figure they were warning you about. The one who said he came from among them, but was not truly from among them. The Antichrist wasn't some figure from the far-off future. Antichrist came early. The Antichrist was Paul. Now there are many antichrists because many continue to follow his gospel without even questioning the contradictions. It's time to go back to the truth, to the words of Jesus, to the message the disciples actually carried. Not the version Paul invented, the version Rome approved, but the real message of Jesus, the one of inner awakening, the one of your connection to the divine, the one that says you are whole, worthy, and complete. Just being you helps you to remember who you truly are. And if this resonates with you, if this blew your mind, comment below and let me know your thoughts. And if you like more videos on Christ consciousness, empowerment, and hidden truths, give me a like and a follow.